There are 4 different Legendary Hero decks to collect, and the Steelforged Storm packs a massive punch. Welcome to the world of Skyscape, a fantasy trading card game universe I'm building from the ground up. This deck heavily focuses on a combination of balance and rage type magics, and has a little bit of other magic types sprinkled in just for good measure. The deck's centerpiece hero is this character here, the Coalson Werewolf. And with him, alongside all of your other Coalson cards, you will be able to create plenty of tokens and feel like you're within the Forge. The deck also features many different powerful relic cards and weapon cards that you can put onto the battlefield. And overall, this deck has a special place in my heart as one of my best friends inspired the character of the Coalson Werewolf. But looking at the box itself, we have the picture of the Coalson Werewolf on the front, all of these different cards from Coalson's human form to the Forge, different weapons that he creates and uses, to the back of the deck here, which features a little lore section as well as a complete deck list provided here. And on the back of the deck box here, we have the Skyscape logo looking all nice and metallic and covered in flames, almost as if it was in the Forge. But opening the box itself, we do see this picture of Fife, the Coalson hammer. Opening the box further, we see the symbol for the Coalson crest. This is the family symbol used by Thomas Coalson and all of the Coalson characters. Opening the deck box further, we do have the picture of the human form of the Coalson Werewolf, that being Thomas Coalson himself. And of course, we have the cards themselves. Each of these decks contain 54 cards, and let's go through the card by card. Starting off with the summon deck, we have 2 copies of Thomas Coalson, Blacksmith. This card has one of the more unique typings, as its typing says double. So its type is both balance and rage type, and you can tell that by the 2 lit up symbols on the bottom of the card here and here. You can summon this card once per turn by paying 4 life and by retreating 2 balance type or rage type summons. It has the deflect ability, which protects it once per turn, and it also has the ability where you can discard a card to increase its runes. Next we have the Coalson Werewolf itself. You can send the human version of this card to the Void and pay 5 life to summon this card. It has the deflect and piercing keywords, meaning that it can protect itself once per turn and that it can deal any excess combat damage directly to the opponent. You can also discard a card to deal damage to any target, and if your opponent or a card that they control is dealt damage by a card effect, you can increase this card's runes temporarily, making this card an absolute powerhouse. Next we have my favorite card of the summon deck, the Black Scale Dragon. It costs 7 life to play this card. It has airborne, meaning that it cannot be blocked by most cards. And it has the amazing ability that whenever an opponent plays their first card during their own turn, or when they play a card during your turn, you get to deal 4 damage to that player, making this card have an absolutely insane effect damage ability. You can also discard cards to make your weapon card stronger. Continuing with the summons, we have Rafengar, Wrath of the Nuclear Kaiju. This card's pretty unique as you have to pay 9 life and reveal Gojir, King of the Nuclear Kaijus, from your summon deck to summon this card. And if you do, this card cannot be blocked this turn. Also, once each turn, you can target an opponent and discard a card. If you do, deal damage to that player equal to the life cost of the card you discarded. So this card is an absolute powerhouse. It does cost a lot of life to play, but you are able to attack with this card immediately without having it be blocked on the turn that you play it, and you can also deal some pretty impactful burn damage. Continuing with the Kaiju, we have Ixantos, Might of the Nuclear Kaiju. This card has the same summoning condition, requiring 9 life and you to reveal a Gojir, King of the Nuclear Kaiju from your summon deck, and when you summon this card, you can target an opponent and sever all summons that they control. However, you cannot attack with this card during the turn you activate this effect, but you can still attack with any of your other cards, making this card an excellent board wipe. The third and final of the mainline Kaiju is Yanvaya, Breath of the Nuclear Kaiju. It costs 9 life and the reveal of your Gojir, King of the Nuclear Kaiju, to summon the card. On its summon, you get to increase the runes of each other Nuclear Kaiju summon that you control by 3. It also has the Airborne keyword and the Lifebound keyword, meaning that it's hard to block, and whenever it deals combat damage, you're able to gain life in the process. Making this card a very good powerhouse and utility card too. Gaining life in a game where life is the main resource is one of the most impactful things that you can do. Next up, we have Gojira, King of the Nuclear Kaiju himself. The summon of this card and the effects of this card cannot be negated. You must sever 3 of your different Nuclear Kaiju summons to summon this card. When you do, you sever all other cards on the battlefield. Also, this card gains the Piercing keyword, and when this card would be severed by battle or by an opponent's card effect, you can send this card to the void and bring out the 3 lesser Nuclear Kaiju in Exontos, Yanvaya, and Rafengar. However, if any of those lesser Kaiju would be removed from the field, they're sent to the void instead. Overall, this card is a massively insane board wipe, and if your opponent does manage to out this card, you get the lesser 3 Kaiju back, making the Kaiju strategy overall an incredibly powerful engine, filled with fearsome threats. We have Elvish Protege. This is one of our more basic summons. It requires 1 life to play, and once per turn when this card would be targeted by an opponent's card effect, you can change the target of that effect to another card that you control. We then have Sorceress of Reflections, which costs 3 life to play, and when we play it we get to create a copy of it, making it a pretty nice 2-for-1 card. Next up, we have Elvish Nullifier. This card costs 3 life to play, and whenever you would be dealt effect damage, you can discard a card and deal that much damage to your opponent instead, making this a very good way to get around any of your opponent's pesky burn cards. We have Elvish Swordsman, a balance type elf that costs 3 life to play and the retreat of one of our elves to summon, and it has both the piercing and deflect keywords. And then we have a combination of the Passionate Recruit and the Vengeful Swordsman. Passionate Recruit costs 1 life to play, and once per turn you can discard a card to deal 2 damage to any target. And you can either pay 2 life to play Vengeful Swordsman, or you can use his ability that whenever a human you control is severed, except this card, you can pay 2 life and summon this card. If you do, you can increase this card's base runes by the base runes of the severed card. And with that, those are all the cards of the summon deck. Let's move on to the cards of the main deck. To start, we have 3 copies of Fife, the legendary Lightning Hammer. This card is one of a few cards in the main deck that are double type. This card is both Order and Rage type. The activation and effects of this card cannot be negated, and it can only be played by sending a Fife the Coalson Hammer and a Lightning in a Bottle that you control to the void face down. And when you do play this card, you get to exhaust all cards that you do not control. And if you do, those cards do not recover during their owner's next recovery phase. But during the turn you activate this effect, you can only attack with Coalson cards. So this card is a great way to stun your opponent's board and to deal some heavy damage with your amazing Coalson cards. Next up, we have 2 copies of one of the most powerful utility weapons in the entire game, Omni Gadget. This card only costs 1 life to play and has a massive 3 runes. On top of that, the card has the Guardian keyword, meaning that this card can block attacks from any card, functionally turning this card from only a weapon into both a weapon or a shield. Next, we have 2 copies of Swordsman's Rapier. This card costs 2 life to play and has 3 runes. It also has the Piercing keyword as well as the Parry keyword. Parry says that if this card is not exhausted, it may block attacks, functionally turning this card into both a weapon and a shield, meaning that when it comes to battle, this card is good for both offense and defense. Next up, we have 4 copies of the Coalson Sword, the centerpiece weapon of the Coalson strategy. This card costs 5 life to play and is double type, with this card's type specifically being Balance and Rage. This card is treated as a one-handed weapon while it's equipped to a Coalson Werewolf that you control. It also has the Deflect keyword ability, and once per turn, if this card is equipped to a Coalson Werewolf, you can discard a card, and if you do, you can increase this card's runes by 2 until the end of this turn, making this card a very powerful weapon for the strategy. Moving on to the shields, we have 2 copies of the Reignited Rune Shield. This card costs 2 life to play, has 3 runes, and whenever it blocks an attack, you can deal damage to the attacking player equal to the runes of the card that it's blocking, making your opponent think twice about attacking with their strongest cards. We then have a powerful set of Rage-type shields, starting with the Venerax Gauntlet. This card has the Bash keyword, meaning that if it's not exhausted, it may attack. functionally treating this card as both a weapon and a shield. Continuing with this trend, we then have 2 copies of the Retaliating Rune Shield. This card costs 4 life to play, has 3 runes, and has the Bash keyword. Again, functionally treating it as both a weapon and a shield. And finally, we have 2 copies of the Reposting Silverblade. This card is one of the most useful utility shields in the entire game. It has the Sixth Sense keyword ability, meaning that once each turn, you may equip this card to you from your hand. If you do, you pay this card's life cost at the end of this turn, rather than when you play this card. And once per turn, during an opponent's turn, when you play this card using its Sixth Sense effect, you may deal 4 damage directly to that opponent, making this card an excellent combat trick to use, and a way to always keep your opponent second-guessing your next move. Going into the arcane cards next, we have 2 copies of Vaporize. This is a very solid removal card that costs 2 life to play. It's a response arcane, meaning that you can play it at any time during any turn, and it simply reads, Sever Target Attacking Card. This is a great card to both protect you and also dismantle your opponent's board during the game, making it one of your most powerful arcanes. Next, we have 2 copies of Fling. This is a great card that returns one of your opponent's weaker cards directly back to their hand, clearing up their field and letting you continuously strike with the forces of your Steelforged Storm. Next, we have 2 copies of Crumble to Ash. This card lets you target one of your opponent's weaker cards and sever it, making it another great piece of removal. We then have Erudarin Eviction. This card lets you sever a card on the field that is not balance type. Then, if you control an elf, you get to look at the top card of your deck. Then, you can choose to put that card on the bottom of your deck, or keep that card on the top of your deck, granting you some very powerful insight to use during a game. And for the last arcane card of the deck, we have Nuclear Meltdown. You can only play this card once per game, and the activation and effects of this card cannot be negated. You can target a kaiju that you control that has not attacked this turn, and you can deal damage to any target equal to the runes of your targeted kaiju. However, your targeted kaiju cannot attack during the turn that you play this card, and at the start of your next end phase, you send that kaiju to the severed pile, and if you do, you deal damage to each opponent and each card they control equal to the runes of your targeted kaiju, making this card not only a very powerful board wipe, but an extremely powerful card that deals tons of effect damage. Moving on to the relics, we have 1 copy of Blazing Talisman. This relic is free to play, costing 0 life. You can only control 1 copy of this card, and whenever you attack with 2 or more cards, you gain life equal to the runes of one of those cards, making this card an excellent way to gain life. We then have 4 copies of Ear, the Coalson Forge. When you play this card, if you control a Coalson character, you can search your deck for a Coalson card and put that card directly into your hand. And whenever a Coalson summon that you control attacks, you get to draw a card. Also, you can exhaust this card to create a token card that can be a weapon or a shield, making this card a great source of both card draw, token generation, and a great way to search your deck for exactly what you need. And to pair with the Forge, we have 4 copies of Fife, the Coalson Hammer. While you control this card, Coalson cards that you own cost 2 less life to play. And once per turn, you can exhaust this card to choose one of the following effects. You can either create a token, have one of your Coalson summon gain runes, or you can target one of your cards and give it the Deflect ability. Next up, we have 4 copies of Lightning in a Bottle. Once per turn, you can exhaust this card and choose one of the following effects. You can either sever a card, deal 5 damage to any target, or draw 2 cards, making this card one of the most powerful utility relics in your entire deck. And that's every card within the Steelforged Storm Legendary Hero deck. But now, let's get into the combos. So one of our most common combos with the deck will be summoning out both the Elvish Protege as well as the Passionate Recruit from our summon deck, each of these cards costing us 1 life to play. Then we will take both of these summons and return them to the summon deck, retreating them to be able to summon out our copy of the Thomas Coalson Blacksmith. We can then summon out our copy of the Coalson Werewolf by paying 5 life and taking our Thomas Coalson Blacksmith and sending it to the void face down. And from here our board just gets stronger depending on if we have any of our Coalson relics or Coalson weapons to play on top of this. For example, if we started with our copy of Fife Coalson Hammer, that would decrease the life cost of all of our Coalson summons that we would play. And if we continued off this combo with a copy of the Coalson Forge, we could use this to search our deck for any of our Coalson cards. We would also get to create token cards and draw cards whenever our Coalson summons attack. We can also utilize our summon deck by going into our Kaiju cards. So we can summon each of these Kaiju cards by paying 9 life, as well as revealing our copy of the Gojir King of the Nuclear Kaiju from our summon deck. And for 27 life, we can get out each of these powerful Kaiju cards to use to absolutely decimate our opponent. And on top of that, we can take each of our Nuclear Kaiju and sever them to summon out our copy of Gojir, King of the Nuclear Kaiju, which can't be negated, and when it enters, we can sever all other cards on the battlefield. And of course, if our opponent manages to destroy our copy of Gojir, we can recycle it with our 3 other Kaiju cards, making this combo a very formidable strategy. And of course, if we want to up the effect damage on top of our already completed Coalson board, we can always pay some life to summon out our copy of the Black Scale Dragon, guaranteeing us a way to deal our opponent some sweet burn damage. And through a combination of our summons, our weapons, our relics, and even some spicy combat tricks, we can win the game easily and show our opponents the power of our Steelforged Storm. But next, let's talk about the story behind the Coalson Werewolf. Thomas Coalson was a legendary blacksmith during the Great Kin Wars. Once a mage who focused entirely on the use of rage magic, Thomas pursued the emotions and anger of his inner chaos to craft weapons unlike any others. He crafted all of his fearsome armaments with an ear, the Coalson Forge. From swords to shields and from armor to relics, each item was crafted with extreme care, where each item forged would become a part of Thomas Coalson's legacy. In his blind arrogance, he sought to create the strongest items to give to the strongest warriors. The strong would get stronger, and that was the natural way of things. But what Thomas Coalson did not account for were the atrocities that his weapons would help to create. He thought that they were just tools to use during the Great Kin Wars, and to put down when there was finally peace. He was wrong. Every single person that he helped to aid had abused their newfound arsenals, even in moments of peace. What he thought would end the battles only perpetuated them and made them worse. He cursed the Coalson Forge and wished to abandon his craft, but he knew that would change nothing. Haunted by the deadly impact of his craft upon the world, he aimed to make amends for the harm he indirectly caused, and he studied the ways of the Erudar. He began his pursuit of enlightenment and discovered the silver magic of balance. Using his newfound knowledge, he crafted new relics that could tap into the magic of balance. Not long after, he had become an expert in using the silver magic. He would craft new items to protect the innocent and to right his wrongs, and he would use this new magic in combination with the crimson magic of rage to do it. He would not fail his legacy again. No, now he would help to save the world. Now tempered by his wisdom, Thomas had chosen the path of a protector, creating tools and arms necessary to keep the peace. But no two factions desired the same things, and Thomas's quest for peace continued. And then, there was his transformation. Under the light of Eto, the false blue moon, Coalson transformed into a fearsome, mighty werewolf. While his form shifted, he was bombarded with the thoughts and memories that Eto possessed. Memories of the planet Elkanar before its destruction played within his mind, and the Void's invasion haunted him. Once the visions were over, Coalson continued his work within his new beastly appearance. Forging great weapons for himself, he set out to find the one that Eto had called him to search for. And as he traveled, other werewolves joined him and his cause, following the message of Eto from above. Quickly becoming their stoic leader, Coalson traveled the land in search of the great machinist. On his travels, he even commanded a black dragon and rode it into battles against invading forces. He protected his fellow werewolves at all costs, and eventually, he met with Tyrion and his multiversal duplicate. With both of the great machinists helping him, Coalson would aid in the construction of the Apocalypse Engine, Tyrion's final failsafe against the Void and its cruel machinations. And with that, that's everything for the Steelforged Storm Legendary Hero Deck. Overall, this deck has some very powerful synergy, the ability to search for exactly which cards that you'd like, being able to make tokens to help you out throughout the grind game, as well as some very powerful combat tricks to keep your opponent on their toes. With cards like the Black Scale Dragon to deal your opponent tons of effect damage, and Coalson Werewolf to power himself up, you have some pretty powerful offensive cards. And of course, if you need to go into even more powerful summon cards, you have the Nuclear Kaiju. As far as weaknesses go in this deck, I would say that the high life cost requirement of some of your summon cards, like the Nuclear Kaiju, could potentially put yourself in a place where your life total would be much lower than your opponent's. But as far as the payoff go, I'd say the trade-off is pretty strong. The deck also has a pretty high dependency on your relic cards, so if your opponents have cards that can destroy your relics, I would say this does somewhat cripple the strategy. But overall, the Steelforged Storm deck is a very powerful deck, and I'd highly recommend it. And if you like the strategies shown in this video, I would definitely pick one up. And with that, there's 2 more decks to go. The Arcane Authority deck, which focuses heavily on counter spells and elves, and the Glorious Vengeance deck, which focuses all on the character summon Rack and making him stronger with every card that you control. And if you want to see more of these amazing legendary hero decks, Skyscape lore, and new cards to be shown, make sure to subscribe. But that's it for this video. As always, aim high and pierce the skyscape, and I will see you in the next video.